Hi, Mark.
Hey, Sarah. You hear me okay?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
I hear you're snowed in.
I am.
We had snow last week in the UK, so feel your pain. Okay, so are you ready to go?
I think so. Let me get set up, share my screen.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay.
Thank you. Good luck.
Excellent. Should I just start?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was an introduction or not. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending the Tableau Fringe Festival today. My name is Mark Bradbourne, and I'm a Tableau architect for KeyBank in Cleveland, Ohio. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the power of color. So I've been working in business intelligence and analytics for about 20 years, and there's absolutely nothing that qualifies me to talk to you about color. Zero. But what I am hoping to do is share some things I've learned along the way through trial and error, through research, and from others, and share some tools that I found to be super helpful. So to get us started thinking about color, what is your favorite color? If you can take a moment and tweet out your favorite color with the hashtag #mycoloris. Try and keep it simple in the Roy G. Biv basic colors. Give me red, blue, green, etc. My personal favorite color is blue. And when I start creating a viz, I always seem to start in some sort of blue. If you look at my Tableau public profile, and if I remove things that had specific or obvious color palettes, the majority of my vizzes end up having blue in them. And as I think back over the years, my college colors were blue and gold. My fraternity colors were blue and white. My current motorcycle is blue. And I often wonder, do others seem to see the same patterns in their lives and with their favorite colors? So color means different things to different people. And while it differs from country to country and belief system to belief system, it remains pretty consistent. Thinking about temperature, what color is heat? It's red. How about cold? It's blue. When we think about politics, every country is different. In the United States, you have Republicans or our conservatives as red, and our liberal Democrats as blue. In the UK, the Conservative Party is blue, and the Labour Party uses red, and the Liberal Democrats use gold and orange. In Denmark, the center-left Social Democrats and the Allied parties are known as the Red Bloc, and the center-right Liberal parties are the Blue Bloc. So being aware of these local color values and meanings can be very important depending on your intended audience, or more importantly, your unintended audience. But the following is pretty consistent for general use. For example, red is associated with war, danger, passion, desire, love. It attracts the most attention when compared to other colors. Yellow is associated with joy, energy, and happiness. Yellow is also another good attention getter, which why many taxis traditionally are colored yellow, at least in the United States. Orange combines the energy of red with the joy of yellow, and it gives the feeling of freedom and enthusiasm. Green is the color of nature and the environment, and has a strong emotional correspondence with safety. Also, it can convey jealousy and greed. Blue is the most universally preferred color, as I well know, and it's also the most versatile. It's emotionally tied to reliability, trustworthiness, and communication. It's calming and meditative to those who associate it with the water or sky. Purple is emotionally tied to luxury and majesty and has spiritual or mysterious quality. Black is all about business. Think about being in black and white. It's sophisticated and powerful, while at the same time associated with death. So being aware of these attributes can add a new dimension to your data visualizations when used appropriately, or conversely, can detract when used incorrectly. So Sir Isaac Newton first theorized the color wheel as he was studying the spectrum of visible light. Later, Goethe started to add the psychology of color, stating that colors that were diametrically opposed to each other in the color wheel evoked each other in the human eye. So for example, he stated that orange demands blue and purple demands yellow and red demands green. The simple colors demand the more complex colors. And the thing that I found really cool was that when you start to break it down, you end up back with the primary colors. For instance, purple demanding yellow. Well, purple is a secondary color from mixing red and blue. So you've got yellow, blue, green back in your primary colors. So when you think about color, there's three characteristics that make up its DNA: the hue, the saturation, and the value. Value is the relative lightness or darkness of a color. The lower the value, the closer to black. The higher value, the more pure color. Hue is the spectrum of the color, the basic colors we learned as children. You know, Roy G. Biv, and all the colors and combinations in between. Saturation has to do with light intensity. The lower the saturation, the closer to gray or white you are. Where there are higher saturations are pure single wavelengths of a given color, like a laser. You'll also hear people refer to tone and tint, but those are the same as saturation and value, respectively. So manipulating the color's DNA is ultimately how we create our color palettes. So now that we understand a little bit about color theory and the DNA of color, we can start to put together our palettes. So these are the basic principles of color palettes. So monochromatic color schemes are made up of a single saturation and values within that specific hue. These are the simplest color schemes to create, as they're taken from the same hue, making it harder to create jarring or ugly schemes, but both are still possible. Monochromatic schemes are easy to create, but can be boring when done properly, or I'm sorry, when done poorly. Adding in a strong neutral like a black or white can help keep things interesting. Complementary color schemes are created by combining colors from the opposite sides of the color wheel. In their most basic forms, these schemes consist of only two colors, but can easily be expanded using different values and saturations. Analogous color schemes are the next easiest to create. Analogous schemes are created by using three colors that are next to each other in the 12-spoke color wheel. Traditionally, analogous color schemes all have the same hue, but by using values and saturations, you can add interest to these schemes and adapt them to the needs when designing visualizations. Triadic color schemes are made up of hues equally spaced around the 12-spoke color wheel. This is one of the more diverse color schemes. They can be difficult to do well, but they can add a lot of visual interest to the design when they are. Split complementary schemes add more complexity than regular complementary schemes. In this scheme, instead of using colors that are opposite, you use colors on either side of the hue opposite your base hue. And finally, tetradic color schemes are probably the most difficult scheme to pull off effectively, because let's be honest, if you're using this many colors in your viz without a good reason, it could start to look like a bag of Skittles. I'll show you an example of a tetradic color scheme and explain my rationale in a little bit. So as we know, color is a preattentive attribute, which means that it's processed in less than 250 milliseconds by the brain. Take this sign. It's eye-catching against the greens and browns, and I hope for the reader's sake that it's outside the direct path of those riding the zip line. It goes without saying that the power of color in data visualization is one that must be treated with the utmost care, and it has the power to influence, and if misused, it has the power to obscure your message. So here are three things to consider when you start to apply color to your visualization. What has importance? If you only could color one piece of your viz, what is that one thing that you would want to emphasize the most? What needs highlighted? If there are secondary things behind that most important thing that need highlighting, make sure they stand out, but don't detract from the most important thing. And then on the other hand, if there are values from a category that need color, how best do you achieve that? Is there one category greater than the others? Are they all equal? These are important aspects to consider when you're applying color to your visualizations. Because color can be so powerful, we have to take care on how we apply it, and more importantly, why we are applying it. Tableau makes it easy to apply color to our visualizations, and it's easy to fall in the trap of applying color everywhere. The doors all look great, but if I'm not sure which one to focus on, I'm not sure which one to open. Make sure that you tell your users which door they need the most. So here's an example of something I built. I've purposely removed the color from it to demonstrate what I'm talking about. What I'm really trying to highlight here was the disparity between Puerto Rico's income and the rest of the United States. And while the circles being slightly larger are okay as a pre-attentive attribute, nothing works as well as color. Adding the red highlight brings instant recognition to the most important aspect of this particular data story that I was trying to tell. So if you're lucky to work for an organization with what I like to call a strong sense of self, then there's a better than average chance you've got a branding guide to work from, to create color palettes from. If you're working independently or for an organization that's not so self-aware, you may find yourself on your own. When I worked for Harley-Davidson, it was very easy to find the hex values for Harley orange, Hog brown, and Freedom yellow. Another company I worked for had primary, secondary, and tertiary colors defined for use in all materials and output. Now, currently at KeyBank, we have one color, red. Now, from a data visualization standpoint, that's a bit problematic. If you find yourself in this situation, you're going to need some tools. So here's what I did to come up with my own corporate branding. So the first tool I use is a tool called Peloton. It's a fabulous tool for building palettes based on some of the palette strategies I talked about a couple of minutes ago. Here I've put in the KeyBank red as my base color and created a tetrad color palette. If you like simplicity, it's programmed to give you a pure, well-balanced palette. But if you like turning the dials and really customizing the experience, you do have maximum flexibility to spread the color hue, change the values and the saturations. Peloton gives you a nice monochromatic scheme of 5 shades in each of the tetradic values, as well as some of the complementary values, mainly like the blue and orange in this case. It's one of the really nice features of this tool. The reason I chose tetradic was I wanted to give our users the ability to build their visualizations and have some color options. Basically giving them the convenience of having all the corporate color choices that are based on KeyBank red in one custom palette rather than having to jump around from palette to use the colors. It was not intended that they would put all 4 colors on visualization at one time. So one of the other great features about Peloton is the testing of the palettes. Now you can see the colors in concert with each other, and you can get a feel for how it'll look when they're placed together in your application. Based on the simulation of the color, it looks like my palette plays very nice, and I can see differentiation in the saturations and values. I think it looks good. One of the other great things about Peloton, it also provides easy access for testing multiple color deficiencies. Turns out my palette works pretty well for color blindness, so now I feel comfortable grabbing the hex values and building the custom palette. If you've never built a custom palette in Tableau, I highly recommend you check out the knowledge base, as they've built a great tutorial on building custom palettes. But Mark, what if I'm working with a blank canvas? This is for something outside of work, maybe for Tableau Public. Now what should I do? Well, I hear you, and it's tough. So where do you start? You're going to need some inspiration. Luckily, we live on Earth, and Earth's color palettes are pretty amazing if you've ever been outside. And what Earth can't provide, the wonderful artists can fill in the gaps. So take a picture of a sunset or a beach or the mountains, even wander through an art gallery and snap some pictures to inspire your palettes. Or cool websites like Pixabay give you the ability to put in any search predicate you want. Any word will do, even the word random, like I did here. I looked through, I spotted something that I really liked, saved it, and went to my next tool, which is the Canva Color Palette Creator. I quickly upload the image and boom, a beautiful 5 color palette's delivered. There's no modification, there's no turning of dials or buttons. So what you see is what you get. Clicking on the color tiles copies the hex value, and you can copy them into your custom palette with ease. To circle back for a moment on color deficiency or color blindness, in its most common variety, it affects 5% of males and 0.5% of females worldwide. Other versions appear in less than 1%. If your visualizations are headed to an unknown audience, whether personally or professionally, you should try to be sensitive to this. I know firsthand. About 10 years ago, I worked for a law firm, and I presented a dashboard to our CFO. I did a basic stoplight scorecard as he requested, using red, yellow, and green for a set of KPIs. He looked at it, looked up at me, and was like, "Hey, it looks great, but I can't tell what the KPIs are telling me. I'm colorblind." Well, it would have been great to have that information beforehand, but I've been pretty sensitive to it ever since. And now if I'm forced to do any kind of stoplighting, I always use icons to reinforce those messages. But if you want to test your Tableau content and you're using Tableau Server or Tableau Public, I highly recommend installing a Chrome extension called Spectrum. Once you've published your dashboard, you can navigate to it, click the small icon in the browser, and you can simulate 9 different color deficiency types. If you aren't using Tableau Server, Coblis has an online color tool deficiency checker that you can take a screen capture and upload the image to see the results. In all truth, avoiding color deficiency is easy if you aren't overusing color. Highlight the good or highlight the bad. Don't do both. If it doesn't need highlighting or called out, let it live in support of the other elements that do. So let me take a couple of minutes, kind of wrap up and leave you with my final thoughts. When applying color to your viz, less is more in most, if not all cases. If color can help you deliver your message psychologically or emotionally, do it. Use color to your advantage. When building a color palette, be sure that you aren't going against nature with colors that clash or compete. Use your new knowledge of color theory and the DNA of color to make beautiful, harmonious palettes. Use online tools to create custom color palettes and test for color deficiency. These tools are free and they're brilliant. Don't struggle if you don't have to. And lastly, no one knows everything. It's not possible. So with color application in your visuals or anything else in life, get some feedback and iterate through it. Make it part of your process. I've found so much value in the Tableau community, but nothing as great as the feedback I receive. So ask for help, listen intently, learn all you can, and grow as a developer and as a person. So I mentioned a few of these resources during my talk. I listed them all here. The 3 books at the top I highly recommend for learning more about color and finding inspiration. Canva and Peloton's URLs are listed there for building those beautiful custom color palettes. Spectrum and Coblis for testing color deficiency, and then Pixabay for images and inspiration for color palettes. Lastly, I want to thank the Tableau Fringe Fest for having me. This was awesome. I hope that everyone learned a little something about the power of color. Thank you for being awesome, and enjoy the rest of the Tableau Fringe Fest.